Welcome to the PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. I'm Tracy Bingaman, and I'm obsessed with redefining what success as a PA looks like and what it feels like. Here you'll find the mindset shifts, systems, and processes I use to escape healthcare burnout and integrate my work into my life. Work-life balance is a myth, and an integrated life where you thrive professionally, not a balancing act, is the goal here. My mission is to help you to grow into a unicorn PA who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and work-optional financial freedom. The PA is in. Every so often in life, you meet someone who reminds you that you are part of something bigger than yourself, who gives you that confidence to remember that your voice matters, that you have the ability to mentor other people inside of medicine, and that you are brave. And fear is simply an illusion that might be holding you back from making one of the very best decisions that you have ever made. Sharon Girard is that person and that PA for me. We're going to talk about political involvement, why your voice matters, and remembering that this life is a series of choices and to be in tune with when it's time to make your next change or your next move. Without further ado, here she is, Sharon Girard. Sharon, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So if you could introduce yourself to our listeners, tell us a little bit about you and your illustrious career as a PA.
Well, I've hit the 40-year mark. I've been a PA for 40 years, and I'm working still. And I've done a lot of different specialties. My passion is women's health, and that's been throughout my career. But I also did almost 2 decades in emergency medicine, urgent care. I've worked in surgery, I've worked in occupational medicine, and I did a stint of practicing in England. So I've done it a lot of different things. And I have a passion for mentoring and helping other women in PAs and working for the profession and working for better lives for everyone. So.
Awesome. And part of that career, you got involved from a political aspect, and this is something you're very passionate about. Why does this matter as PAs that we are involved in political changes, in updating legislature? Why can't we just practice medicine and kind of keep our heads down? What's the problem there?
Well, as we know, doctors don't just practice medicine. The legislature, Congress is full of them. Nurses are out there too. Dentists are out there too. But there are very few PAs involved. And the public needs to see us, just like they need to see us as patients and colleagues. They need to see us out there making laws and making changes. Because as we have a little comment and we say, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And we need to be at the table. We from the smallest help with the local government to all the way up to Washington, D.C. We need to be at the table. PAs have only had one PA that served in Congress, Karen Bass, who happened to be a mentor of mine, and she's currently now the mayor of Los Angeles. So, and now she's not in Congress anymore. So no physician associates are really in Washington, D.C. at all represented. Some are at the state level and smaller levels. But there is a lot going on besides our name change, besides healthcare, education, everything that influences as in part of our lives as mothers, as humans, as providers. We need to be at the table helping to influence further changes to make lives better for everyone.
And what is something that people can do? Say they're like, well, I don't want to be a senator, right? Like, I don't have interest in being like actively involved in the legislature. How can we just educate ourselves? I feel like since I started this show, I realized there was a whole lot that I just didn't know about laws in my state and things that were going on. How can we best stay abreast of what's going on where we're practicing and the things that are going to specifically affect us?
And it's happening now, right? How many states are putting forward name changes? My state just sent me a survey asking, where I'm at in that as a California resident, and do I have any comments? And then there's a lot of Practice Act issues and all sorts of things. The first thing that you can do is just listen, talk to people. You can show up at a city council meeting and just sit in the back and listen to what's going on in your local community. You can show up at a school board meeting. Most of your listeners are parents. You can show up at a school board meeting and listen and see what's going on. You don't even have to participate. Just sit there and listen. You can you can contact your local congressman's office, and they love to send you emails and newsletters and updates about what's going on, either in the state as the state legislature, this law, or this bill is being introduced, or this is what I'm doing in Congress right now. I want to keep you advised. So you can just do that. You can sit at home and scroll through your phone and look at all of those updates. So just to see what's going on. It's very, very simple, and it really doesn't take a lot of hard work, and you don't have to be physically out there. A couple of things you can do from the phone is you can sign a petition. Petitions come to you and say, we're trying to get this done or that done. And if it speaks to you, put your name on that petition. If there's something going on that affects your local community, you can show up at a school board meeting or a city council meeting. You can speak if you want, you don't have to speak. And just your body being there in any capacity actually sends a message. But we are trained healthcare providers. We are professionals. We have just as much credibility as a doctor, as a nurse, as a dentist, that when we do stand up and say, I want to speak about something that has to do with health or whatever is close to you, we have so much credibility because of our standing, because of our education. It really does make a difference, and you can make a difference as big or small as you want to do.
Uh, and it's really important to remember that those things are not invite only. So you don't have to be on the school board or on the city council to be able to attend. So those meetings that are open, you have to know like where it is and what time and make arrangements to get there. But it's not like, oh, only come if you've specifically been requested to ask and speak. You can go just because you care about what's happening with your kids in school or what's happening in your city. And I think there's this sort of narrative that we have that you would only go to a city council meeting or to a school board meeting if you're really pissed off about something, right? That's when you're going to go.
Right. Yeah. The angry people.
But I think that going just so that you know what's going on, so that you're not reading it in the newspaper and you're hearing it firsthand, because then you have that direct ability to sort of see and hear, get the feel for what other people are thinking about. And like to go as an observer feels like very low risk. Like, no, you just go and observe and just see what the process is.
Sit in the back of the room, and you can bring children, as long as they're not crazy running around kids. You can bring babes in arms, or bring your 6-year-old if they are fairly well behaved. You don't want them screaming and interrupting, but this is an open community. These are open community forums. And it's really sad, because when I started running for office, I attended all these meetings, and I would look around and see how few people showed and how many seats were empty, unless, of course, there's a very big issue, then everyone piles in. I once went to a city council meeting because there was a smoking ordinance. This was going back to the 90s, and I was very passionate about non-smoking. And so, everybody was standing room only. But they're banning books in many communities. There's all sorts of things, sadly, that are going on that are anti-education, anti-women, anti-family. And whatever side of the political aisle you are on, your voice is welcomed because we are in a democracy and we have free speech. And if you have something to say it. And if you don't feel comfortable speaking in front of a lot of people, everybody gets a little nervous and their voice cracks, but you don't have to speak, really. And if you want to, you can write it down on a piece of paper or put it on your phone. A lot of people show up with their phones and they read. It's fine. You don't have to have it memorized. And it can be very short because usually it's timed. It's like 1 or 2 minutes. So it's not like you have to speak for a long period of time. But if you have something to say, stand up and say it. And it all goes on the record and it all makes a difference. And you don't think, a lot of people think, oh, I'm just one person, I'm just one voice. It doesn't matter. It does, because the louder voices are what people listen to. So if you feel your side, however you feel about an issue, is important, then your voice is a louder voice. It's not the people who are at home. You're there. And that's going to be important. I don't think people understand how this all works. Every time, let's say the state legislature or even Congress, you make a call or you send an email or you tap on something that you're yay or nay to something, it's all recorded. And the legislator, whether it's a senator or a state legislator, they tally that up and they look at all of that. They really do. And they read the comments. It may not necessarily be the legislator, but their close aides will compile the comments and then bring it to the person and say, we have people in the healthcare profession who are saying these things. Maybe we should listen to them, whether it's yay or nay or good or bad. So you don't realize how important your voice is. It really is listened to. It may not in the end, when something goes the opposite direction, you say, see, my voice wouldn't have made a difference. It didn't work out. Well, you don't know. And, it's always the luck of the draw. Sometimes you're passionate about something, but it doesn't go your way. You try again, right? That's what we do as PAs. We keep trying. We're persistent. So you just be persistent.
Yeah. And also as a healthcare provider, as someone who's trained, I agree that we have this platform and this ability to really show we're knowledgeable in an area, especially if it comes like rights and all of these things like health and wellness. And also as a parent, I think when I became a parent, I immediately started caring more about my community than I had before. Like, not like I didn't care before. I was just sort of kind of going along as things were. And then I had kids, and then I started to care a lot more. And I think that advocacy for others is sometimes easier than feeling like we're doing it for ourselves. So whether it's for your kids or your patients or your local clinic, whatever it is that matters to you, even if you say, I feel nervous to stand up and say something about this, I find drawing courage from speaking for someone who doesn't have a voice, my kids or my patients or, some clinic that's in jeopardy, those things, it's easier for me to muster the courage and the motivation to be involved when it's something that matters to me. And those things matter to me. And what matters to me is probably going to be a little bit different than what matters a lot to you.
Yeah, exactly. And our voice does carry weight. I mean, even if you're not a PA, but I think as a PA, because I'm speaking as a PA, one time I showed up at the state capitol to speak on a bill about emergency dental care for women, and it was proposed by a dentist, and it was about dental care, right? I don't know much about dental care, but I do know that women that have infected teeth, do have a higher rate of premature labor. So women's health was a specialty, and I spoke on that. That it was in that state, you could get your teeth cleaned free as a pregnant woman. You got emergency coverage, but you couldn't get any dental work done for free. And this bill was, while you're pregnant, you can get some free dental work for cavities and teeth pulled because of the risk for infection, premature labor, and other risks, of course. And so I spoke as a health professional to get the bill passed. The bill did pass. It was proposed, like I said, by a dentist. But we understand these things, and to me, it was like a no-brainer. It was like, well, she can only get her teeth cleaned, but if she needs a tooth pulled or a cavity filled, it won't be covered, and she has to pay out of pocket. And these women, the poor indigent women are not, they don't have the money. So I thought, wow, that's really kind of a no-brainer health-wise. So, we all are very busy in our lives, and I don't expect people to say, oh God, I've got to think about every health bill that comes across the desk of a legislator. No. But if you find out about something, or you get those emails or newsletters and something strikes you, you don't have to run to the state capitol, because now that I live in California, it's a 4-hour drive, so I'm not running there anymore. But you can email your legislator, or you can just, vote. You can actually, when it's time to vote, you can get their voting record. They voted no against emergency dental care for women who are pregnant. Really? Do I want that person to get elected again? So it gives you more information because you get their voting records. So there's a lot of things that you can look at as an advocate and help out for the next term, because a lot of these terms for the state are only 2 years. Mayors, city councils are usually only 2 years. So if someone's doing an awful job, you have a good chance of getting someone better in, because it's only a 2-year term.
When I graduated from PA school, my mom asked me what I wanted as a gift. I wanted a special piece of medical jewelry that I could wear every day. Searching the internet, I could find one single caduceus necklace, and it was slim pickings design-wise. Thankfully, we now have V Coterie, my go-to source for everything from adorable medical pins with witty puns and necklaces with charms for every specialty and area of medicine. They are on a mission to heal the healer through thoughtful design for healthcare workers, and V Coterie hits it out of the park again and again. Head to vcoterie.com to check out their latest collection of jewelry. It's an important reminder to do your homework and to be aware all year round, right? Not just when we're in an election season, not just when everyone's talking about voting and issues and platforms, but rather to get plugged into these things so as they're happening, because during election season, nothing gets passed, right? Everyone just gets voted in, and that's not really when change happens. Change happens during their term, when people are actually voting on things, when people are actually, enacting bills and doing all of that. So it's just a good reminder to be more aware, more plugged in, and sort of to be on the lookout for opportunities to use your knowledge and to pair it with your passion to really, speak up and say something for someone who might not be able to get, what they need.
I think the thing that causes anxiety or even sadness in people is if they don't like the way things are going, they feel powerless. Well, there's nothing I can do about it anyways. This is just the way it is, and I'm just going to have to live with it. But that's not really true. You do have power. You may not have humongous power, but you have some power. And you can make small changes that benefit people, whether it's local or national. You can do that on a small scale. And if each of us does it on a small scale, it adds up, like one vote, one voice. Well, think about what that adds up to. So you are not powerless. We are not powerless. Whether it's in work, which you talk so eloquently about, whether it's negotiating a contract or whatever you do at work, we're not powerless. We can take our power, especially as women, and use that power for good, for our families, healthcare, for the community around us, because education also is another very big issue. And so we need to be involved in that as well. How are our children educated in the states and the communities that we live in?
Yeah. Which really sort of dovetails nicely with the second thing that we wanted to talk about, which is as PAs, as a lot of women listen to this show, and just as human beings, this sort of quest to find this passion and really figure out your worth as a person, as a provider, and to lean into figuring out what your best life, what success for you looks like, what it feels like. How have you navigated that in your own life? And can you give us a little bit of advice as our, temporary mentor here on the show, how we can go about sort of kindling that passion and figuring out what our worth is?
What I have found over my life is, and this is what I also say to other PAs, because I do some mentoring as well, is when people are unhappy where they are, they need to look inward and see what their passion is. Are they following their passion? And women's health had always been my passion, and I always came back to that. And to not be apologetic about it, that I'm sorry, this isn't really I don't like my job, I'm burned out, but I guess this is the way it's going to be. Medicine is changing, I just have to live with it. My personal motto is, nevertheless, she persisted. And so persistence, we need to be persistent. If this isn't working for you right now, then look at yourself and what is your passion and what motivates you. And then find that passion. It may not be the higher paying job. It may not be something even local. I have moved a number of times out of state and far away for something that I felt was very important. And a lot of people say, well, I have a husband, he has a job, we have a life, my parents are local. It's a difficult decision. Don't get me wrong. I grabbed my daughter out of her first year of high school and moved her 2,000 miles away from California to the Midwest, and for a great job and for many years of a wonderful situation. It was a sacrifice. And I've always said to people that you can find your dream job if you are willing to relocate. And that's easier said than done, granted. And when I did a postgraduate residency in OBGYN in New York City, and I was living in California at the time, and I picked up my whole life and my 10-year-old daughter and moved to New York and lived in residence housing and worked 100 hours a week to do a residency in OBGYN and surgery, because that was the most important thing to me at that time, and left my husband, who had a general contracting business in California, and I was living in New York, and we had a long distance relationship. And it's hard. It's hard. But I do not regret one moment of what I did. Everything builds. Of course, I'm looking back 40 years. Everything builds on the next thing. And you know that as well with the things that you've done in your life. But everything that you've done, good or bad, easy or hard, whether it worked out or it was awful, and it all builds on the next thing. And I always say, I wrote this to one person once, that, when a door closes, a window opens. And so, nothing's over. There's an opportunity out there, and just keep going, and things will get better, and you're going to build on that. And then you're also going to get a different perspective of, okay, your sights will be sharper, of, oh no, that's happened, but no, that's not going to be right. I can feel that wiggle in my stomach. I'm going to go this way. And you're going to evolve, and things are going to get better. So yeah, just keep following your passion and persist. Those are the things that I live by.
So, speaking of that intuition or that like deep knowing where you're trying to choose between two choices or make some massive move and move all the way across the country for, a fellowship or whatever it is, when you were making those choices, were you scared? Did you feel like totally confident, like for sure this is it? Or is that a hindsight thing where you're like, oh, I'm looking back and now I know it was the right decision?
Probably a little bit of both. Maybe I was a little naive, especially about the fellowship. It was like, oh yeah, we could do this. Yeah, I was sleeping on the sofa. I got a one-bedroom residence housing. My daughter and the live-in au pair stayed in the bedroom, and I slept on a sofa for a year. And um, it definitely was daunting. It was, but you can't let that paralyze you, because some of the best decisions you're going to make in life are going to be the ones that frighten you. I have a saying too, that fear is an illusion, only love is real. And I always think about fear as just an illusion, because when you look back, what is fear? What is fear? It's not going to kill you. Fear doesn't kill you. Fear, it's an illusion. So I try not to let the fear guide me. But it was probably more exciting than anything, but I also didn't know what I was getting myself into. So now
I feel
looking
like
back,
that about motherhood. Like, I feel like I was so excited to be a mother and I had no idea what I was getting into. Then I got in, I was like, wait, what? Like, this is harder than I thought it was going to be.
yeah, it's definitely is harder. And I went to PA school with a 1-year old. I started PA school with under a 1-year old. And so, yeah, and I hear the stories a lot, like on PA moms, of women that are either pregnant during PA school or parenting young children, or deciding when to have a child. Should they wait till after PA school? So, women can do it. I always say women can do it. Women can do it all, not just all at once.
Absolutely. That's an important reminder to be graceful with ourselves. So, before we move on to that topic of grace in motherhood, I want to ask you if there's someone listening who says, like, that sounds great, but I'm not exactly sure that I've found my passion yet. So, I went to school, I'm a PA, I'm practicing, but I'm feeling a little blah. Either I've plateaued at my job or things are changing and I'm just not happy. How can we go about sort of rekindling or figuring out what that passion is if we're not quite sure?
Um, it's probably different for everyone, but I would think that you need to just take some time to quietly think about what excites you when you hear something. You look at job openings and you scroll down, and then one just catches your eye. So what excited you about that? Or you think about other people that you know that are working. What excites you about their job versus the one you're at, or something else? And try to hone in what's important, because I know what got me into PA school was women's empowerment and rights. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to do women's health. I wanted to be involved in women's care. So that was a passion of mine. But then it took me other places, like I said, emergency medicine and such. So I think that it's patience, and it can be time to see what do you not like about what you do, and what kind of sparks things about what you do. I don't know. Or what someone else does, and connecting with people. That's why we go to conferences. That's why we get on, the PA Mom Facebook page is so busy. And I'm involved with a group with PAs for Women Empowerment, which is another wonderful group. And I just got back from NCCPA working on the a certificate of advanced qualification questions for OBGYN. We're going to be offering an OBGYN CAQ starting very soon, and I was one of the question writers. And 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 um, dealing with the wonderful women in that group and listening to all their different practice experiences. Some were in gynonc and some were doing urology and sexual health, and some were doing labor and delivery and just delivering babies, and just talking with all sorts of other PAs and seeing what they're doing and what kind of sounds like it interests you. So connecting. If you have a local group in your community of PAs, we do, and supposedly I'm supposed to be elected president again tomorrow night. We have the oldest California group. It's a combined NPPA association where we get together once a month for CMEs and to get together. So if you have a local group, go to that so you can talk to other PAs in the community, see what they're doing, because sometimes we're very isolated. We're the only PA in the practice, or there are other PAs, but we're so busy seeing patients we don't have a chance to talk. Or we're in the hospital and we just pass each other by. We never get a chance to talk with anybody. And I think that connecting of what other people are doing, if you're not happy, can start to spark something that makes you think, maybe that's interests me, and then you take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an important reminder. It's easy to be surrounded by people and also still feel alone and disconnected because we haven't taken that intentional time to sort of connect with and have a conversation about, hey, what do you like? Or maybe that person had some experience in some other specialty and you could ask them about that because it's interesting to you. And it just sparks this like more excitement than what you're currently experiencing, and that you need to give yourself permission to make the time and space to sort of figure out what's exciting to you, and then also explore that excitement and see if that's something that you want to change and go into and end up spending more time doing, for sure.
You're definitely correct. The other thing I would say is we don't have to take this. I've heard people say, that's just the way medicine is. Medicine is changing. I guess I'm just going to have to accept it. This is the way it is from now on. No, you don't. There's different scenarios everywhere. You can be a person that helps change things for the better, but if you don't want to do that, you don't have to take that. You can find another situation that speaks to you better. Even if it's in the same specialty, you love primary care, but the primary care setting you're at is dysfunctional or there's issues going on that will never change. You don't have to settle. There is something better out there. There always is something better out there. I've seen it. I've worked a lot of places in my career, and I always have to explain, I've never not gotten a job because my CV is full of jobs. Don't let that worry you. I've never lost a job. It always comes across as experience. And what I say is, oh, yeah, look at this. These are around the same dates, but I did a couple of shifts a week at Planned Parenthood, and then I did a couple of shifts in the ER and a shift in the urgent care. So that's why I've got all these employers. I was doing a bunch of part-time shift work because I loved it all, but I didn't want to do it all at the same time, right? I didn't want to do
Sure.
ER every day or Planned Parenthood every day, right? So, you can certainly explain yourself. But I think as PAs, and I don't think I've heard too many negative things from colleagues as well, having different jobs or leaving jobs that are not good for you or your soul rarely works against you. If the employer has a great situation and they kind of get this feeling, you don't have to come out and say, oh, was it just awful? And, there was sexual, problems. No, just, people can kind of feel that you're a good PA and we'd be happy to have you, you know? So people are really afraid to leave because they're worried that it's going to look bad on the CV. But I never found that ever to be the case, ever.
Agree. I think that as an employer, I'd rather hire someone who knows their worth, who knows it's not a good fit, who knows what they're looking for, who left because a situation was toxic or untenable, or simply because they were ready to move on, over someone who said, oh, 25 years, 23 of them I was miserable, but I stayed the same place, right? Like that's not a go-getter. That's not someone who knows their value and their priorities. And I do think there's a way to appropriately explain reason for leaving without making it seem like, as you said, that we're not saying like these are all the reasons why it was terrible. Like, nope, it wasn't a good fit. I no longer was fulfilled there. I decided it was time to make a change. And then ta-da, you can find something that works for you. And as a PA, I have gone through these seasons of life where work was a bigger part of my world. And then where babies keep showing up at our house, we finally figured out where they come from. So, can you talk to that working mom listener? Maybe she's pregnant and is expecting, maybe she has really young kids in this very busy season, which tends to coincide with sort of when our career is ramping up also. How can we be graceful to ourselves in that period? How can we avoid burnout and the overwhelm that comes along with motherhood, period, and also working motherhood?
Well, my daughter is 42 now. So I can definitely look back over the years, and I know that the first thing I want to tell people is to not carry that guilt. They're going to turn out okay. My daughter's favorite joke is to push my buttons and say, "But you never came to a high school volleyball game," which was always at 3:30 in the afternoon, and I had clinic. I was working in my job. And I said, "Yeah, but I was there in the evenings when you were on stage and helped with makeup. And I did some school, I did so many other. She was a cheerleader. I showed up at basketball games to watch you cheer." So she just does that to push my buttons. But I remember dropping her off at 2.5 years old at daycare. They took them in diapers. I was so lucky. And she was the first one dropped off and the last one to be picked up, 7 in the morning and 6 at night. And sometimes I had to rush because my husband was a general contractor. So I had to he couldn't always leave the job site on time. And I thought, I don't have any time to spend with her. She's not going to grow up. And she, it works out. Kids are very adaptable. They're very flexible. And as long as you spend quality time, it's not necessarily quantity time. I know with me, quantity kind of gets on my nerves after a while. I got to have a break. I'm a working woman. I mean, I would never have been a stay-at-home mom. It was kind of a fantasy. I grew up in the 50s and 60s. They were stay-at-home moms, right? But my mother wasn't, and I kind of had her and my grandmother wasn't either. But that was the ideal, to be a stay-at-home mom. And it's not all, some of us, a lot of us are cut out to work, to be productive, to be out in the community. And whether it was volunteering, my mother, did that, but I need to be out there. That's important. And when you're fulfilled, then you're a better mother. You're the best mother that you can be. And you need to let that guilt go. And it's certainly easier said than done. And sometimes you do have to wait 25 years to say, oh, okay, they did turn out okay, but they will as long as the parenting is done correctly. I've been a single mom too. When my daughter was in high school, I was a single mom. I was divorced and a single mom. So I did it all, whether it was a single mom or a married mom. And it works out. They are okay. And what's most important is, are you okay? Are you happy? And are you being your best self? And then the rest will follow. So try not to carry that guilt with you. I'm Jewish. Guilt is part of my DNA. I'm sorry. And there's other people, I think Italians and other people are like that too, but whatever. Yeah, we always feel guilty. I'm not there. They're missing something. I can't be around. I'm not always there, but we don't always have to be there. So we just need to be there when it's important to be there.
Yes. And to be focused and present when we are with them and to really not be distracted. I felt like when I was in a season where I was super burned out, really sort of in a very busy season at work, I would worry about my kids at work, and then I would worry about work at home, and then I would never really be fully present, and I wouldn't really be thinking about who needed me to be thinking about them in that moment. So if I could get out of that, like work is work, someone else is on call, they will take care of this, my patients will be there in the morning, and could really focus on my kids. First of all, they felt better because I was actually paying attention to them. And I felt better because I was looking them in the eye and not like on Tiger Text on my phone or scrolling or doing something else that was distracted mom is not a present mom for sure.
No, no, no. And you're right. You weren't there either way. You weren't for your kids and you weren't there for your patients. So, if you're happy again and fulfilled, then your children see that, and then they have a good role model. You want to be a good role model for your children. And so again, it's finding what your passion is, and it changes through life. I mean, everything changes. What you really wanted to do one time in your life in 5 years, you don't want to do that anymore. I was passionate about community theater for a decade, and it was all that, and brought my daughter with me who was involved in community theater. So we shared that in the evenings and on the weekends. But I haven't done that in a very long time. So things change in your life, and that's okay. Be accepting of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And be on the lookout for the things that help you to realize it's time to make a change. Don't just keep doing something because it's the way you've always done it. Don't keep playing that sport or doing that hobby or working that job just because you're scared of what change might bring. Because oftentimes, on the other side of change is something that makes you happier and more fulfilled and more of who you want to be. But if you don't slow down enough to really look for those hints that you're feeling resentful or unsettled or no longer happy, then you just sort of keep on keeping on. And 20 years later, 20 years have passed and you're not fulfilled and not happy.
And then how does that look on your CV when you finally wake up and go, okay, well, you've been somewhere 20 years, and did you progress as a clinician as much as you should have with all that experience, or were you stuck in a rut and you didn't acquire new skills, or you didn't become the provider that you should be or want to be? I mean, it's never too late. I've been doing this for a very long time, so it really is never too late. Eventually it is, but usually for a long time. So you it's never too late to just say it's time. It's time. And that can be very scary. But again, don't be afraid because it's just an illusion.
I love that. And also, you know, I think that we need to think about our careers more proactively. So even if you have no reason to leave your practice, you're super happy, what's your next move? Do you want to become more competent about something? Do you want to take care of a specific subset of patients? Do you want to get some certification or get involved in a different way? What's your next move? Even if you're staying put, you should be moving forward. You should be growing in your own abilities, become a leader, mentor students, precept, do things that sort of continually stretch and grow you so that you could be at the same job for 20 years, but like, how did you grow? How did you progress in your skills over that time frame?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Again, become a better provider, whether it's a leader or acquire more skills or whatever, or start new programs. I used to do that. I said, "Oh, let's do this, or let's have a program." One of the jobs I had a program through the hospital where when my pregnant patients were about to deliver, no one had ever done that before, and unfortunately when I left, no one did it again. But I would talk to the labor and delivery nurses and go through all my patients and say, these are coming in and these are their stories, whether it was drug abuse or I had the largest teen pregnancy practice in the county. That was my specialty, adolescent pregnancy. I even spoke on that at APA conferences. I had a strong interest and I wrote articles that were published on adolescent pregnancy. So we had a case discussion and I alerted them, and the nurses were so grateful that they had blank slates when these girls showed up to deliver. They knew nothing about them, right? But I had gone through every one of my patients because there was only one hospital locally, so it made it easier, of course. But they knew who was coming in and what to expect and what were some of the issues and what so and how their prenatal care was progressing, and that management, that case management was incredible. And I wish that I could have started that model through other practices. I don't know if it's done anywhere else, but I think it's incredible. I don't understand why people in OB practices don't talk to the place where the woman's scheduled to deliver and say, these are our patients and this is what you're going to expect, because the nurses thought it was a fantastic idea. We met once a month and went over patients. So I developed that program. So there's always something that you can do to push yourself or further what you're doing, even in some place where you stay a very long time. Because time is not important. It's what you do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that intentionality and being focused on and looking for opportunities to grow yourself and to take better care of patients, which is really the reason that we are all doing this thing that we love so much. Well, Sharon, this has been so much fun. I feel like it's so great to see someone who is at a different phase of life, who has sort of made it through. As a mom of young kids, I just felt relief hearing you say, like, it's going to be fine. They're going to be fine. Like, it's good to hear from someone who's lived through it, survived to tell the tale, and can sort of look back and say, hey, here's my advice. Here's my experience. So thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing your wisdom with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And I just hope that whoever listens to you will look out to the community and be involved. And our voices are so important. We need to get out there. Everyone needs to know what a PA is, what we do, and no more questions of what are you, who are you, and be valued as an important healthcare member of the community, and as a mother, and as a PA, and as a provider. Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
This podcast is so fun for me because it's often a series of reminders and teaching and exactly what I needed to hear on that day. It's important to be reminded of the position that we hold in society and how the community that we live in is ours. And our life is ours to dictate, and that finding our passion and rekindling that connection with our purpose is so important. Because sure, we might be parents and of course we're PAs, but we are people too. I hope that Sharon's advice resonated with you and this conversation helped you to feel more a part of this community of PAs that we are building here. I'll see you next time on The PA is In. Congratulations, you've just joined an awesome club. By listening to a full episode of The PA is In, you are officially on the Unicorn PA team. Welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episode of the show. The life of your dreams exists on the other side of taking action. Keep making small shifts and keep getting better. Your life will improve, your career will soar, and you will have the confidence you need to create your own success. I will see you in the next episode. This PA is out.